Let's check this out. Let's watch it together, guys. We've got 7 people in here. All right, let me speed this up because honestly, I can't stand listening to this goof for very long.
This next story is almost too easy. I almost didn't cover
It's too easy, guys. Dunking on Ayn Rand and ARI, it's way too easy.
it in the show because it's just too, like, I don't have anything to say about it. I just want to show you the headline and then you could fill in the blank in your own mind because it speaks for itself. So the Wall Street Journal bureau chief says the following. The Ayn Rand Institute received a PPP loan of between $350,000 and $1 million.
Oh no, you guys!
Now, most of my audience knows who Ayn Rand is.
Most of his audience knows who Ayn Rand is, but they don't really understand what she's about because lying goons like Kyle Kulinski don't accurately portray her ideas and her philosophy. But he's going to tell you. For those who don't know, in Kyle's audience, he's going to tell you all about Ayn Rand. Watch.
For those who don't, let me tell you. She's a very, very well-known writer, famous writer, and her whole thing is anarcho-capitalism.
Her whole thing is anarcho-capitalism, you guys. Again, go back to the Ayn Rand lexicon. Talking about libertarians. Anyone offering such a combination confesses inability to understand either. Anarchism is the most irrational, anti-intellectual notion ever spun by the concrete-bound, context-dropping, whim-worshipping fringe of the collectivist movement where it properly belongs. She called libertarians the hippies of the right. So there you go. Anarcho-capitalism. That's what she's about.
Or, you know, what's currently understood in the U.S. context as libertarianism.
Yeah, libertarianism. That's what Ayn Rand is about. Also, this ignores the fact, and I've made videos about this for those who have been paying attention. I did a video in response to Shane Killian, who is an ANCRAP YouTuber, ANCRAP libertarian YouTuber, who did a whole video shitting on Ayn Rand and Harry Binswanger's criticisms of anarcho-capitalism. Made a whole video about that. So even the ANCRAPs don't like Ayn Rand. They don't. Michael Malice, has a love-hate relationship with her from what I've seen. In fact, Yaron Brook, I remember someone asking Yaron Brook multiple times to debate the ANCRAP economist Tom Woods. And Yaron Brook, after a few times, said, look, not only would I never debate Tom Woods because I think his ideas are ridiculous, Tom Woods wouldn't debate me. The ANCRAPs, the anarchists of the libertarian movement, think of objectivists as bloodthirsty warmongers after the objectivist response to 9/11.
I've read a bunch of her stuff, and...
He's read a bunch of her stuff, you guys.
And she was extreme. There were some...
Yeah, and she was extreme. And as we all know, as some of you guys in the chat may know, Ayn Rand wrote an essay about extremism and how it's often used as this empty smear. It's bad to be extreme, even if you're an extremist for good, apparently. If you're an extremist for reason, if you're an extremist against slavery, if you're an extremist against prohibition, moderation, that's what matters. Even if it means moderating with evil, apparently.
Essay she wrote where she said, no, we do need some level of government, and the government should be the court system. Like, because we need to have a place where we go to settle disputes. And so every country needs a court system. But that's pretty much it. Like, that's
pretty much it. Just the court system. Now, I know Kyle's full of shit already. Let's look. Where is it? There we go. Here we go. In Virtue of Selfishness, Essay 15, Government Financing in a Free Society. So Kyle says, oh, all she wanted was the courts. The courts. When she says right here, since the proper services of a government, the police, armed forces, and law courts. So it wasn't just the courts, Kyle. That's what Kyle likes. Oh, it's just the courts. What a bunch of malarkey.
The government should just do the court system and that's it. Then there were other essays she wrote where she was like, even the court system should be privatized. And it should
He is full of shit here. I have never seen... Now, maybe someone can dig this up where Rand advocated for the privatization of courts. She never advocated for the courts to be privatized.
A voluntary donations for a court system. Now,
Now he is right there, yeah, and she explains that. Actually, let's continue watching.
of course, in typical Ayn Rand fashion, she ignores like the consequences that paint her views in a negative respect. So
Listen to this. He creates this straw man, saying that she was essentially an anarchist, then immediately contradicts that and says, oh, she wanted some form of government, but it was only the courts, which was a lie. And even the court should be privatized, which is another lie. And now he's about to extrapolate that. He's about to carry this straw man to a logical conclusion.
if you have voluntary donations for a court system, who's going to donate to that court system to keep it running? The people with all the money.
The people with all the money.
Very, very rich people. So in a situation where the very, very rich people are the reasons why the courts are functioning, do you think that those courts are going to be objective and maybe hear out somebody who was screwed over by one of those billionaires? Or
But interestingly enough, even though this is based on a total straw man and extrapolation from that straw man, Ayn Rand says right here that a way to fund the courts is through transaction insurance, right? Because people in a free economy, by the way, she says that, the voluntary funding of government would be one of the last steps in a free society, and that we shouldn't start with that question, right? And that was in the 60s and 70s. And now we're even further away from it. So, yeah, you never want to start with, oh, how would we fund the government? No, that'd be one of the last steps. You got to get the culture to embrace reason and rational self-interest, embrace egoism. And then they'll eventually reduce the government to its proper function. And then, after all that's done, then we can have that discussion. But we're not ready for that discussion, not even close. But she said right here that transaction insurance could be a way to fund the courts. That even if you're not running a business, because, even if you download free software, like when you sign up for a YouTube account, download Facebook app on your phone and sign up for a Facebook account, you agree to a terms of service contract. That's a in a sense, that's a transaction. You're agreeing to a contract. And so you would buy credit transaction insurance. And so if you ever came to court, if you found out that Facebook was stealing data that you didn't agree to, if you enter into a contract, say you buy a car from a dealership and they're not honoring the warranty, but you have then you would take them to court and the transaction insurance would pay the court fees. This also ignores other factors, the democratic elements. In a free society, you would still presumably have democratic elements if you found, because Kyle's saying, oh, only the rich would benefit from courts because they'd be funding the courts. Only the big businesses and the rich, they would get all the favors from the judges. Well, you could solve that by voting out judges. You could also have lawyers that file a motion to get judges off the bench and whatnot. There would be democratic elements in a free society. And also you would have charitable activist law organizations like the Innocence Project, the ACLU, choosing to represent people who might not be able to afford representation or court fees and all that good stuff. So, again, this is just complete nonsense. Kyle has no fucking clue what he's talking about.
or will they side with the people who are giving them the money and keeping them
Whoops,
running?
got to bring it back.
They're always going to side with the billionaires, or the overwhelming majority of the time side with the billionaires. So, like, she lives in this fantasy world where it's like everything's theory.
By the way, when it came to antitrust, I mean, I guess the courts weren't voluntarily funded then, but I mean, there's plenty of examples of the courts not siding with the billionaires.
In theory, X, Y, and Z should happen. Okay, but in practice, it doesn't. In practice, anarcho-capitalism is substituting one form of tyranny, government tyranny, with private corporate tyrannies. But in her mind, those don't count, because it's voluntary. It's voluntary for you to go work for the corporation, for you to sell your labor on the marketplace and have somebody
It is voluntary.
lord over you and tell you what to do. Hey, you chose that. You chose that. So that kind of tyranny doesn't count. So
Now, in a sense, Kyle is right, because anarcho-capitalism, anarchy is a form of tyranny. You would be resorted to a privatization of force, and a privatization of force, a market in force, is just war. So yeah, you would be tyrannical. But that's not what Ayn Rand called for. So his whole example is total bullshit.
But, I mean, it's a strong stance against government spending. It's the ultimate small government.
And then he also talks about it like, oh, it's just theoretical, when objectivism is the most reality-oriented philosophy there is. And it's not about applying theories to politics. No, again, I talked about this in the segment about Dave Rubin and Michael Knowles. It's not about looking at politics and society and seeing which theory is the best. No, you start with the individual. The individual has a right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. They have the right to use their mind to make decisions, to use their reason to make decisions in pursuit of their own survival and self-interest and happiness. And society should be organized around this idea, around the protection of the individual's right to do so. It's not based on a little theory.
Position. Okay, so why the hell are you taking a PPP loan? A government loan between $350,000 and $1 million. Now, people made the argument against Ayn Rand and against, like, I think Ron Paul, like, oh, Ron Paul accepts Social Security money. Ayn Rand lived off some government money towards the end of her life. So, hypocrites. Now, the response that libertarians have to that is, yeah, but they did pay into that their entire lives through Social Security, through the social safety net.
So at least Kyle's honest enough to, address to present both sides of the whole dumb. Oh, Ayn Rand took Social Security. Isn't she a hypocrite? At least he's honest enough to present both sides. But he says, ARI accepting PPP. Watch this.
So, like, they're just getting back what they already paid in, so they're not really hypocrites. And they weren't given a choice to opt in or out to Social Security, so is it really, like, are you really burning them? No, they're just automatically as part of Social Security, so you didn't get them. They're not hypocrites. A PPP loan you have to apply for. It is categorically different than the Social Security one. So they're actively choosing to get a government.
It's categorically different. Now, again, the intellectuals at ARI, they talked about this months ago and explained why they were doing it. And then they did more videos. I think Ben Bayer and Ankar Gate did a video in response to all of the backlash explaining why they took it. And Yaron Brook did a whole video about it. So I'm not going to go into too much detail. But according to them, they claim that the government lockdowns, and I believe this, the government lockdowns have had an impact on their donors. And now the donors for ARI are giving less money due to the lockdowns in response to coronavirus. And on top of that, ARI does have employees. They do pay people to do work for them. And that was one of the justifications for the PPP loan. Was, oh, this is for businesses and institutions so that have employees so that they can keep their people employed. It would only be a contradiction if we had a laissez-faire capitalist society and ARI was going bankrupt and then they went to politicians asking for money. That's the only way this would be a contradiction. Because this also doesn't mention the fact that, we're going to have to pay for this eventually. They're just, quote-unquote, borrowing the money that they're giving away in all these stimulus packages and the PPP loans and all this stuff, the trillions of dollars in goodies that they're sending out to people to alleviate pain from the lockdown. We're going to have to pay for this eventually, either through future taxes or by printing dollars, thereby devaluing whatever dollars you have left. And ARI is rightfully saying, yeah, we're going to have to pay for this eventually. I mean, we're already paying for the lockdowns that the government imposed on us. And we're going to be paying for the destruction and distortions later at a certain time. So we're going to try to minimize our losses as much as possible by accepting the PPP loan. And it would be a contradiction to refuse it in the name of some dumb principle, which it wouldn't be a principle at that point, right? If you're going to say it's okay for the government to tax, take your money, and then devalue whatever money you have left, but you're not allowed to recoup that losses, only other people are allowed to recoup that losses, that would be a contradiction. But again, I recommend checking out ARI's and Yaron Brook's videos on this because they do a much better job of explaining this than I am doing. Is that Jigglypuff sniffing DK's poop hole? Yeah, that's how I started the show, Vogger. So here it is. I wasn't sure what kind of background I wanted to have for my OBS live show. And I was debating about whether or not to have just a stock image of a basement, a stock image of a newsroom, a stock image of a map behind you. I even thought about having the Windows XP background. But then I remembered this image I took years ago. It was a screenshot. My friends and I were playing Smash Brothers Brawl in college. And we paused the game at the perfect moment in which it looked like Jigglypuff was eating Donkey Kong's ass. And it's been saved on my Wii well, now it got transferred over to my Wii U, but it's still in the file of my Smash Brothers Brawl vault. And so I thought that would be a funny image. This is an image I just accidentally created, and I thought it'd be a funny image to just have in the background. What do you think, Vagar? I mean, it looks like DK's enjoying it. Like his eyes are rolling in the back of his head. He has his like he's like just lying down and taking like, yeah, get in there, Jigglypuff.